I feel like there's so much more to do in life and to experience, and I just love the experience of doing all these different things. And
this is the How to Quit Working Show. Jeff Steinman believes entrepreneurship is the only true path to freedom. That's why he created the How to Quit Working Show, where you'll hear stories, insights, and inspiration from lifestyle fanatics who left their soul-sucking 9-to-5 job forever. Now, here's your host, author, entrepreneur, and ultimate lifestyle fanatic, Jeff Steinman.
Hello and welcome to the How to Quit Working Show. We have got a really fun show coming up. I wanted to do something different. You know, as entrepreneurs, we get bored easily and we need to always have new and different things going on in our lives and try something different. I wanted to talk to somebody different today, not somebody necessarily who started a business, but somebody who just really aggressively and passionately followed her dream. And I came across Sara Hastreiter, and Sara is so cool because she is from landlocked Wyoming, where there's no water, at least not to sail on. And she has been on this really interesting journey following her dreams and following her passions for quite some time now, which has led her now to be on Team SCA and currently in the middle of the Volvo Ocean Race. This amazing team is sailing boats around the world through like the ocean, not across the lake or a pond, but through the ocean, around the world through hurricanes, pirate-infested waters, lots of really great stuff. Sara's going to come on the show, and she's going to talk about how her journey from just kind of growing up in the middle of the U.S. where there's no water to now being a part of this really amazing sailing team. So lots of great stuff from Sara. Look forward to this interview. Before we jump into that, though, I just want to remind you that we do live training. If you really want to quit your job and you want to start a business and you're really serious about it, jump on our live trainings. Go over to howtoquitworking.com/webinar. Get registered today, and you will see there when the next one is coming up. And you can jump right on there and talk to me live and get a lot of great information about quitting your job and starting a business, which is what this show is all about. But without any further ado, let's talk to Sara of Team SCA. Sara, you have accomplished some really cool things, and that's why I wanted to talk to you today. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now with the rowing team.
So right now I'm participating in a round-the-world race called the Volvo Ocean Race, and I'm a part of a women's team, and we're really unique in this race because there haven't been very many women's teams in the past, and the race has been going on for 40 years, and there hasn't been a team with women on it for 12 years. So we're the first one in a long time, and yeah, there's no other females on the other boats. The other boats are all male.
Now, the Volvo Ocean Race, let's get really specific about what that is. It's not just like a little short race, it's a pretty major kind of a thing. Tell us about what does it actually entail?
Yeah, well, the mileage is just under 40,000 miles, and we don't do a very direct route around the world. We actually end up going all over the place because of different sponsors and different countries around the world that are interested in hosting stopovers. So we end up sailing through, some of the most dangerous waters in the world, either because of pirates or icebergs or wave sizes or, just notoriously dangerous places like Cape Horn, Cape of Good Hope, down near Antarctica in the Southern Ocean. And it's basically what they call, it's the most extreme race in the world, as they call it. It's the Mount Everest of sailing, and it's 9 months of competition, whereas if you run a marathon, it's over in a few hours, and this is something that just keeps going.
It's around the world, for goodness sakes.
Yeah. And there's shorter ways to go around the world too, I'll tell you.
Okay. And probably less treacherous ways.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
not about
definitely.
taking the easy route. So before we were talking a little bit about, there's a lot of folks out there who they kind of go to work, they get their paycheck, they come home and they watch TV. Why don't you just do that?
I honestly, I couldn't think of anything worse. It's not that I don't understand why people do that. It's just that I feel like there's so much more to do in life and to experience, and I just love the experience of doing all these different things, and just finding things out there that you're passionate about. And I think once you do that, it's pretty easy to follow them. I mean, it's easy in the way that you're driven to do it, but it's not easy to obtain those things, certainly.
How did you find out that you were passionate about going on this crazy 40,000-mile trip around the world?
Well, oftentimes people say like, oh, you have a goal and that's what you drive towards, or things like that. But I think it's actually being a bit more flexible. It's it's almost, I don't really know how to describe it other than saying that like you try something, and if you like it, like you follow that thing and you try out the next thing that comes along with it. And it's just being open to opportunities and experiences in the world, like through traveling and meeting people. And like I love adventure and I love being outside, and I was absolutely terrified of the ocean, and I thought sailing across the ocean would be the biggest accomplishment of my life, and I was absolutely terrified to do it. But if you don't do things that scare you and that push your own boundaries, then you'll never know how far you can go or what you can achieve as an individual or as a group.
Yeah. So you said you were terrified of the ocean.
Oh yeah, I'm from Wyoming. I saw the ocean for the first time when I was probably, I think I was like 8 years old. Then once again when I was 12, and then I don't think I saw it again until I was like 24.
Most
So
people...
it wasn't something I was familiar with. So
Sure.
if you took someone from an island and put them in the mountains, they would think they were going to be eaten by a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
So it kind of had the reverse thing going on.
Yeah. Well, I think most people, if they were terrified of something and really unfamiliar with it, they would avoid it like the plague. Why did you choose to go and jump right into something that you were afraid of and unfamiliar with?
Because again, I've always enjoyed adventures and doing things that scared me, and even the smallest things, like, oh, I don't think I can jump across that from that rock to that rock, and then you do it and you're exhilarated by the fact that you tried it, and you get a bit of an adrenaline rush, and you're proud of yourself that you tried. And running a race or riding your bike up a steep hill. I mean, it's all these little things, and you just keep pushing your boundaries. And then I started traveling by myself when I, like, in my early 20s, and I was always afraid to do it just because, like, where I'm from, people don't travel very much, and I hadn't had experience with it. But I wanted to see the world, and I knew that from each place I went to and each experience that scared me that I overcame. Like, I learned a lot about myself, and I grew as a person, and I think that's really what pushes me through each challenge, is that I know that on the other side of it, when I'm done, I know that will have, shaped my life in some way, or changed me as a person, or given me a better perspective on, what I want out of my life.
So this started off with a trip to Africa, raising awareness for HIV/AIDS. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the first time that I went, like I said, I'd been doing a lot of traveling alone, and I knew that I couldn't go to Africa by myself. So there was a university trip going through the University of Wyoming, and I thought it'd be a great way to go see part of Africa. So it was led by a professor from Kenya who was working at my university. And so we went over for a month, and that was when I became interested in the subject of HIV/AIDS, and basically came back from that trip and changed my major to international studies with a regional focus in Africa, and then worked on getting internships in Africa and the Caribbean, and I was working with the social side of HIV/AIDS, and in my state at my university, we were working with it locally to do different things, with local stuff like Wyoming AIDS Walk, and then some friends and I had started a campus organization called Face AIDS, which is a national organization, but we started it on our campus, and that was for raising awareness about the disease and raising money for Partners in Health, specifically for a clinic they had in Rwanda.
Excellent. What got you interested in HIV/AIDS as a cause in particular?
Well, it's it was something I knew very, very little about, and again, it was something that kind of scared me. I just wasn't familiar with it, and when we went to Africa the first time, we went over to Kenya, and we went to an orphanage for children that were orphaned by HIV/AIDS, and they were also HIV positive. And I'd never been around anyone that was positive, and this little girl came up to me, and she was probably 5 or 6 years old, and she kind of just took my hand, and we went out on the playground, and it was something that I was kind of nervous about, though I knew the way that the disease was spread, and I just kind of was very empathetic, and I just wanted to understand what was different about this continent and the disease in these particular areas of the world that made it so much more detrimental than it is in places like the U.S. And I don't know, when I find something that catches my interest that I don't understand, or I just like to learn more about it, and I feel like if you're someone that has empathy and understanding for things like that, you should work with those things. You should give your time to them. So that was what I was doing.
And then you also traveled to the Caribbean, right?
Yeah. I think it was 2008. Petrol prices were really expensive, so I couldn't afford to fly back to Africa, and I wanted another internship before I graduated. And so I started looking in the Caribbean because the disease on the social side is more similar to Africa in the Caribbean than it is in the U.S.
Okay.
Basically being that it's more of a heterosexual disease.
Okay.
So I got an internship on the island of St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. So I went down there for that internship.
Excellent. Is that when you discovered sailing?
Yeah, it was that was when I became interested in living down on the islands, and then I went back to university and finished that fall. And then I went down to the Caribbean again, New Year's 2008, 2009, and then lived in St. Croix for the next year and a half before I left to go start sailing all the time, and then I've been sailing since then.
So how did you go about starting this career in sailing? Is there a job application? Did you go on monster.com and say, I want to sail?
Well, there is, to a certain extent. There's actually a really big yachting industry. Okay. And I didn't know that it existed, really. And I just kind of started seeing parts of it. And there's a sailing side, and then there's a motor vessel side, and there's big super yachts that people work on, and they can save a lot of money that way. And I learned that you could race sailboats and that you could race across oceans, and I thought that was pretty much the coolest thing I'd ever heard of, though it sounded very scary. And there was someone who had done a transatlantic, a rally, which is basically a group of boats all go together on cruising boats, and they race each other across the ocean, but it's more about just being close to each other for companionship and in case in case someone needed help at sea. And so I found out that there was another one of these rallies that went from the Caribbean to Europe, and I went on the website, and there was a forum for people that were just looking for crew.
Okay.
And like I'd been working on a boat in St. Croix that just did like snorkeling tours and stuff. So I was just basically sailing around to different reefs
Mm-hmm.
in St. Croix for a few months before that. And yeah, I applied. I contacted a boat that was looking for crew, and they said they didn't mind if the crew was inexperienced because they just love to teach people how to sail. And I joined the boat in the end of April in 2010. And I think it was somewhere around like May 1st we left, and that was like my first 24 hours at sea. And yeah, and then I sailed 6,000 miles with that boat, going from the BVI's to Bermuda, the Azores, Portugal, and then we ended up in Greece. And then I did put my CV online, and I did apply to different things in terms of like yachting, and actually found that for the stuff that I really wanted to do, you don't apply online. It ends up being like word of mouth and things like that. So,
well, so once you got into sailing, how did things go?
well, I was really lucky with my first job.
Mm-hmm.
It was on a racing cruising boat that did a race season in the Caribbean, and I was with them for I think like 7 months.
Okay.
But then they wanted to stay in the Caribbean, and I wanted to continue racing.
Okay.
So everyone told me that if I wanted to keep racing, I needed to go to Newport, Rhode Island in the U.S. So I sailed up there, and when I got to Newport, I just told everyone that I was interested in racing, like whether it was small boats on Tuesday nights or weekend racing or ocean racing or anything really, any type of racing that I could get involved in. And then I started doing a lot of deliveries. Like deliveries are where you basically help people sail a boat from point A to point B. So I ended up accumulating a lot of ocean miles, like nearly a lap of the planet in equivalent. And then this women's team was announced for the Volvo Ocean Race, and I had really accelerated very quickly in the type of boats that I was sailing and the type of sailing that I was doing at that time. Like I was sailing pretty big, fast offshore racing boats at that time. And I knew that my size and my strength would be something that would be a benefit to the team. And so, I mean, it was kind of a long shot for me, but I applied anyway. And I then didn't hear from the team for several months, and then I went and I started the trial process with them. And I was supposed to stay for 2 weeks. I then stayed for a month, and then they invited me back again 6 months later.
Okay. And
then I stayed for 7 months before I was finally officially a part of the team.
Cool. Now you had an injury along the way, right?
Well, I've had a few. the type of boats that I'm on now, it's really rough. But yeah, shortly after I applied to the team, I broke my ribs about a month later. And so I hadn't heard from the team yet, but I knew that if I did hear from them, like the fitness part, as I said, was going to be a big asset for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew I needed to kind of try to recover that as soon as I could and as well as I could. So after you break your ribs, like you can't really do much, you know, and especially in terms of exercise, you can't do much for 6 to 8 weeks. But I got into it as soon as I could, and when I went for the trial the first time, I was really strong, but I certainly wasn't where I needed to be, but none of us were at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, like, we could never be strong enough. Like, these boats are so powerful, and, yeah, I mean, you could be the largest man and you still wouldn't be strong enough. Like, that's why it takes a lot of teamwork to to get things done, because once you're dealing with Mother Nature, like with those wind speeds and the boat speeds, it's just really intense.
Yeah. So the when you broke your ribs, did that happen on a boat?
Yeah, I was sailing from Newport to Connecticut.
So and sailing is not only physically demanding, it's also very dangerous, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like statistically, it's probably safer than walking down the street or riding a bus.
Sure.
But when bad things happen, it's just that you don't really have, there's no safety net.
Sure.
There's of course like policies in place, and we go through a lot of training, but unfortunately when bad things happen on a boat, they tend to be rather catastrophic, and things don't really happen in slow motion. Like if something is bad enough for us to abandon ship, then it's probably something that has happened very quickly. Like we've hit a whale, we've hit a container ship, or a container, like a floating object in the water. So there's like a fast ingress of water into the boat that we wouldn't be able to handle. Or fire. Fire is really one of the only other reasons we would ever get off the boat. But yeah, and then if we have accidents at sea, we are out of reach to be rescued most of the time. So, I mean, helicopters can only go like between 300 and 500 miles offshore. You can send like spotting planes out, and then, any kind of sea rescue is going to be slow. So if you had some sort of, mortal wound happen to you, like there's just nothing you can do. Like we're trained medically, but you can only do so much.
Sure. Sounds like a very, very intense sport.
Yeah, it can be. Most of the time, like most things, it's fine. It's just that when it goes bad, it could be really bad. But again, like we're really well trained, and like we are professionals. So this is what we do, and we are trained to handle the situations, and we're trained to handle our boat in really strong conditions. Sure. But that's kind of what the intrigue is with this race, is that we do go places that we get a lot of intense weather systems, that it is dangerous, that people do break their ribs, herniate discs in their back.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of bad accidents that happen, and it's just you're against like the most powerful elements in the world, really.
Sure. Sara, what's the most important lesson you've learned on this journey that you've taken?
Be nice. I think that's just a lesson for everything, from checking in at the airport to.
I love it.
I mean, it's not like a lesson that I've learned. It's something I've just always known. But it will get you so far through everything in life. I don't know.
Just be nice.
I think
so simple. I love it.
Just be nice. Yeah. I mean, that it entails so much, being respectful, being patient. Sailing teaches you a lot of patience. But I live in a very, very small, cramped, uncomfortable environment with 11 other women, and we have to respect each other, and
you have to
respect
be nice.
Each other. Yeah, and you have to be nice, and like I said, that entails a lot of different things. It means, it means coming on watch on time. It means making someone a cup of coffee, or noticing when someone's really tired and giving them a bit of slack for being grumpy, or, giving that extra bit of help to each other. And like I said, the boats are really big, and all the equipment's really heavy, and so it takes a huge team effort to get anything done. And
Sure. Sara, what does success mean to you?
It's also a very simple answer, which is just being happy, and that's something that is different for everyone. And it's something that I think changes and evolves, like as you grow as a person and as you age. Like when you're when you're 16, being happy might be getting that car you've always wanted, or, you know, later on it's maybe getting into the university that you really wanted to go to, or, you know, later in life it might be having a messy household full of, you know, chubby children running around. And yeah, I think it's just being fulfilled as an individual. And yeah.
Well, and you figured out what it is that you need to be happy. What would you tell somebody maybe who hasn't figured out what they need to be happy? What will make them happy?
I think people are maybe influenced a bit too much from the outside, and they're kind of told they need to be happy. You know, and oftentimes in our society it tends to be material objects, or some sort of level of vanity. And I'm not saying that, I mean, I like nice things as well, but you know, that it's a completely secondary thing in my life. You know, it's being grateful for the things that you have and maybe just improving on those things. Like being healthy, I think, is one of the most important keys to happiness. And you know, being healthy does not mean being skinny. It doesn't mean fitting into societal measurements. It means feeling good about yourself mentally and physically, putting the right things into your body. You know, exercising can do a lot just for you mentally as well as physically, obviously. Yeah, and I think kind of giving yourself a solid base personally, like if you're healthy in mind and body, then you can kind of find those things in your life that maybe aren't good for you, like whether it's a relationship or a job or societal pressures or things like that. So I think going back to the basics, and I don't know.
Yeah, I think the key piece of advice that you gave, I think, is so brilliant, because you said stop letting other people tell you what will make you happy and figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
Excellent. So
you know, and everyone will have that's the thing, is people are individuals. You know, happiness is different to everyone. Healthy is different to everyone. Like, human beings are all very, very different, and you know, that's what's really wonderful about them. So I think figuring out like what makes people unique, but yeah, I think in order to do those things, you have to clear some things out of your life, like the clutter of social media, or like having the television on in the background all the time, like that kind of thing. Or and I realize that's really hard for some people, but yeah. Nothing
worth doing is easy, as we know. Sara, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're in the middle of a race right now. Tell us about how things are going. I know you were obviously able to take some time out and find a phone to call in for us. Yeah, the race is going, like this particular leg that we're doing right now, when we sail from point A to point B, we call it a leg. Okay. And the boat is sailing from Sanya, China to Auckland, New Zealand right now. So that's about 6,000 nautical miles, and it will take around 24 days. And the women's boat has just made a radical turn north. And now, a day later, the other male boats are moaning because they know that when the wind shifts, the women are going to end up about 150 miles ahead. The women's boat has one other male team with them right now. So they're doing really well in this leg so far, and we're about a third of the way around the world. And our biggest challenge lies in the next journey from Auckland to Brazil. It's the most dangerous leg and notorious for bad things happening, basically. But as a team, like, we're really growing well together, and you can just see, like, you know, we lack a lot of experience compared to the men, but you can see all the time where we just get better and better. Excellent. And when does the race wrap up?
We finish up end of June, beginning of July. We finish in Gothenburg, Sweden.
Excellent. Well, Sara, I wish you the best of luck on that, although I don't think luck is what you need. I think you've got everything you need to be very successful. I thank you very much for your time, and look forward to sharing the story with more people.
Thank you very much.
Great show, great interview with Sara. I mean, that's somebody who has just said, you know what, this is what I want out of life. I am going to charge after it. And if you know what you want out of life and you believe that entrepreneurship is the answer, it is the true path, the only true path to freedom, as we say on the show, then reach out to Heather Osgood. She is our How to Quit Working coach, and she can take you by the hand and guide you through that process step by step. She's been there. She's done it. Go to howtoquitworking.com/coaching and get more information, and reach out to Heather at howtoquitworking.coaching. And I will talk to you next time on the How to Quit Working Show.
Thanks for joining us on the How to Quit Working Show. Tune in next time when we'll talk to another amazing person just like you who is now living the ultimate life of freedom and doing it on their terms. If you want to learn how to quit working and get these episodes delivered directly to you, visit howtoquitworkingshow.com.